We're very excited to showcase 5 MSRED alumni and real estate projects, some completed, others in progress. While we couldn't feature every outstanding submission on stage today, you can view additional projects in the slideshow that's rotating outside in the Silverman room where you were having some breakfast and will then reconvene for lunch. I encourage you to look at these other projects. 2 alums will present this morning and 3 more this afternoon. First up, to kick us off, is Sarah Abrams, a member of the inaugural MSRED class of 1985. Sarah Abrams is a senior vice president and head of global real estate at Iron Mountain, a global REIT and leader in information management. Sarah, for her entire career, has been actively involved in Cornet Global, CREW, and NAIOP, and has been an adjunct lecturer at the Center for Real Estate, and for that, we're very grateful. Sarah oversees Iron Mountain's global real estate strategy, M&A, transactions, capital delivery, and facilities, spanning 90 million square feet across 70 countries, and leads sustainability efforts supporting the company's 2040 net zero goals. Before joining Iron Mountain in 2012, Sarah was president of Fidelity's real estate company. For me, who has known Sarah for a while, it's been inspiring to witness her leadership and impact over the years. Sarah?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for giving me the privilege of speaking today. I have a lot of my classmates here, which is very exciting. So I'm not going to talk to you about a project. I'm going to talk to you about Iron Mountain and the corporate real estate organization, because when we first started at MIT, nobody talked about corporate real estate. It was never part of the curriculum. It's one of the reasons that I am passionate about teaching the class that I teach at the center, because I do think no matter what field you go into, whether it's investment or development, financial, that it's important for you to understand the occupier side, because we are the demand. And while all of the investment and development, et cetera, is driven to deliver risk-adjusted return as your North Star, I do just as complicated real estate, but my North Star is enabling Iron Mountain's business. And what does that mean for me? That means I actually have to understand Iron Mountain's business. And so for me, it's been a perfect career in the sense that I love the business world. I love the corporate world and understanding how a company fits together, how it grows, how it makes its money, and figuring out what I can do with my expertise in the real estate area to help drive that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So Iron Mountain, as Denise said, we have 90 million square feet. It was 60 million at the time that I joined. We do business with 95% of the Fortune 1000. You probably think we store boxes of paper, and we do. And the company was actually founded in 1951 as the Iron Mountain Atomic Storage Company. And there was a guy named Herman Naust who bought an iron ore mine in New York to grow mushrooms. You can imagine, that's probably a pretty good place to grow mushrooms. Evidently, there was a change in the mushroom market, and he needed to come up with another way to make money. What is in the middle of the Cold War? We were all afraid that we were going to get bombed, and he figured there needed to be places for secure storage, and that's how the company was founded. In 1996, the company went public with $100 million in revenue, $100 million, and then went on a tear to start buying up companies, because companies that stored boxes of records were primarily mom and pops and regional operators. And they went through a decade of acquisition that grew the company into what you probably all still think it is, the Iron Mountain with the trucks storing the boxes. The company is very, very different than that now. At that time, we also stored tapes for the IT departments of large companies that had to back up their mainframes. This is way before the cloud. And so those tapes were serviced on a regular basis in highly secure places, in physical facilities that were able to preserve the tapes. Now, the company at that time, that industry was still growing. But things started to change over time, as you can imagine. And companies started on a digitization journey, slowly. So the company's leadership was thinking for the future. You would probably, let me just tell you, this is a very high margin business, storing people's boxes. And once they put them in, the average life of the box is 15 years. And after the first year, it almost never gets touched. When I came to Iron Mountain, I had to learn a new language. I had to learn cubic feet, because we procure real estate in square feet, but we sell it to you in cubic feet. So you pretty quickly, you're all smart people with the math, right? 10,000 square is not the same as 10,000 square feet. It depends on how high it is. So that's a metric that I had to learn. But what I will say is the company started thinking about what's next. What's next after this? So we've grown. We're a company, a lot of things going on, lots of real estate at the time, and activist investors got involved in the company, Elliott Partners, some of you have heard of them. And they were pushing the company to become a REIT. Now we're in the 2011 timeframe. And the company was fighting them. This is pre-me getting there. Company was fighting them, and there was finally a settlement. And the settlement was they got 2 seats on the board. The CEO who had replaced the longtime CEO, who had been there since the 80s, was axed. The old CEO was brought back in an interim capacity. And the company said, yes, we will consider seriously becoming a REIT. That is when I started at the company. I started at the company at an inflection point. And in fact, I interviewed with the entire C-suite and the CEO, none of whom are there anymore. None of whom are there anymore. And when I interviewed with them and they said, why do you want this job? I said, because this company is at an inflection point and it will be different 5 years from now. I don't know how it will be different, but I want to be there and watch and be a part of it becoming something different. So we do business now with 95% of the Fortune 1000. We have 1,400 locations. The scope and remit of my organization is portfolio strategy, all of our financial strategies around real estate, transactions, capital project delivery around the world, and managing all of these facilities in all 60 countries, everywhere around the world. I did not have that team when I started. The company was at a point where it realized they couldn't just make do with a bunch of ad hoc kind of vertically integrated P&Ls all over, with everybody doing things differently and the way they wanted. They needed to drive efficiency. They needed to have various global functions in order to deliver services, whether that be IT, whether that be security, whether that be HR and real estate. I was hired to basically build a globally integrated real estate organization that could deliver across the globe and to transform whatever sort of real estate functions that were going on from being what was perceived by the business as very tactical and reactive to something that was a strategic business partner to the business. And the whole goal is, how do we leverage our real estate to enable the business? So what are the businesses? I'm clicking. There we are. This is what we are. We started with the one on the left, to your left. Records and information. That's RIM. That's what I just described to you. But we have a digital business now around digitization and technology, and we have a right to play in that space because of all of the IT relationships that we developed over the years, storing these highly valuable tapes that backed up mainframe data centers and all of the stock market trades and everything that went on that had to be backed up before there was a cloud. And we play in that space. I will describe that to you. Data centers. We got into building data centers. And we have a large underground facility where our first business-focused data center was in Boyers, Pennsylvania. It is 4 million square feet underground. It has an underground lake. The data centers get free cooling, and it's highly secure. You can't get in. We have armed guards around it. And we started there when one of our customers, Marriott, asked us to build them a backup data center. And we said, well, you know what? We can make this a business. And guess what? It's a great storage business. It's a great REIT business. And now that business is really huge. We have 424 megawatts around the world, multiple locations everywhere around the world. Our asset lifecycle management business takes data, assets with data on them, whether it's from enterprise, any kind of company that recycles laptops for its employees, or hyperscaler data centers when they're breaking them down. We take all that equipment, we wipe all the data, we recycle the metals, we do all kinds of stuff with that. Our Crozier Fine Arts business that we got into stores art and does art logistics. Museums, governments, private collectors, et cetera. So what do we have? We have Bill Gates's Corbis collection of photographs. We have Steven Spielberg's interviews with all the Holocaust survivors in the Shoah Project. We have master recordings and originals from Sony, Warner Brothers, United Music Group, all around the world. We were storing artifacts and costumes from Game of Thrones and special kinds of real estate around the world. When we became a REIT, that was a process. I was on our REIT steering committee at the company. It's not based on whether we own or lease our real estate. It's based on the fact that we own the rack. The rack was positioned as real estate. That was the big aha. That was what the IRS had to agree to. We were integral in my team in the arguments to the IRS of why the rack could be considered real estate. So boxes sit on the rack. The income from the boxes is good REIT storage income. I teach a whole class on kind of what that journey was all about. But here's the interesting thing about all of these businesses. They're all at different maturity levels. You get the RIM business and you have the newest businesses that we have. They're all at different maturity levels. They all have different growth trajectories, some growing in single digits, some growing in double digits, some growing in single digits or double digits, depending on the country that you're in. They all have different ways in which they're growing, M&A or organic. They all have different capital requirements to grow. They all have different timelines between when the capital is invested and when the revenue comes through the door. And they all have different margin profiles. And that also means they all have different real estate requirements, different types of real estate for each of these. So that is what we do. And then we think about how do you put that all together? We own so many, 30-some million square feet from our records and information management business. Well, what other business requires a ton of capital to continue to grow? And think about before COVID, when cap rates for industrial real estate were really, really low. And we were able to come back to the company and say, hey, if we do the sale leaseback program with the stuff from our warehouses at cap rates that are 4 and sometimes below, on a leverage neutral basis, we could pull all that capital into the data center business, which is a huge capital hog. It needs it to continue to grow. So we did about $1 billion of that over time. And then throughout all of this, in 2016, when we took over doing all the sustainability or started the sustainability, we had 0% of our global energy coming from renewable sources. And today we're over 90%. So there's a lot that's gone on with the company throughout the years. And we've had a lot of growth. We've had since 2021, 13% CAGR in our revenue. We've had a 13% CAGR in our adjusted EBITDA. We have 11% in our AFFO. What are the challenges? And I'll wrap up with this. Some of the challenges are when you're in 60 countries around the world, something bad's happening somewhere all the time. The other thing I would say is climate change has been really difficult. The weather events are more frequent. The weather events are more dramatic. And the focus on how we harden buildings and where we place buildings is very difficult. Constant cost pressure in the core business. The core business is very high margin. But if we don't continue to optimize in that core business, these lower margin businesses that are more service oriented are going to pull our whole margin down. So we're constantly optimizing in the core and figuring out how we can do that. So that's a challenge. The other thing is, you know, those of you who are familiar with REITs understand the difference between growth CapEx and recurring CapEx. When you have a portfolio of 90 million square feet and every year those buildings get older, you have big recurring CapEx. And figuring out how to balance that on a quarter by quarter basis with the growth CapEx so that the AFO is positively impacted is a real challenge. We don't just have to hit the budget for the year. We have to hit a budget of a lot of moving projects quarter by quarter. So I would say if you are in the right role, corporate real estate has been a fantastic opportunity for me to use everything that I learned at the center and everything that I learned in the development world in the first part of my career. And I've spent the last 30 years leading corporate real estate organizations, which has really been great. But I hope you know a little bit more about Iron Mountain right now. I can't show you pictures of warehouses because I'll bore you to death. And I don't go to fancy cities. I travel a lot, but I'm usually in some dirt road out in the middle of nowhere where it's really hard to find a bathroom when I'm looking for sites because we're not in a fancy downtown. So anyway, it was a pleasure to chat with you today.
Many thanks, Sarah. Really wonderful. Our next speaker is Buds Wenceslao. Buds is MSRED 2008 and is the CEO of DM Wenceslao and Associates, a leading integrated real estate development and construction firm in the Philippines. This morning, Buds will present Parqal, a mixed-use project in Metro Manila. His work highlights how infrastructure and technology can build resilient, connected urban communities. He also serves as a global governing trustee of the Urban Land Institute. We are so thrilled that he actually journeyed 20 hours from Manila to actually present Parqal in person. Many thanks, Buds.
Thanks, Denise. Just a show of hands, has anybody been to the Philippines or Manila? So a couple. So I'll talk about Parqal. It's our flagship development in Manila. So as Denise mentioned, you know, we're government contractors, we're general contractors, at the same time, we're a publicly listed real estate developer. So in the 90s, we won a contract to reclaim 500 acres on Manila Bay. We ended up with half of that as payment for our services. So this is what it was in 1990, and this is what it looks like right now. So we're about 45% developed. Just to put it in Boston terms, so the green and the blue areas, those are the traditional CBDs. You can think of them as downtown Boston and Back Bay. So the area we're developing is near the airport, it's closer to the bay. Think of it as the Seaport District. It's mixed use. The only difference is this is where the government decided to put all of the integrated gaming uses or the casinos, which are the purple areas. So as we try to differentiate between the other CBD projects, we wanted Asiana City to focus on the public realm. And we started with sidewalks. For us, it's such a unappreciated infrastructure for public mobility. Everything from making it twice or three times what the National Building Code was, to putting climate protection, to putting the utilities underground, adding bus stops, public art, everything that would differentiate us from the traditional CBDs. Why? Because this is what we're working at. This is the norm rather than the outlier. Everything from having these super cramped sidewalks to having no bus stops in the major CBDs is what we wanted to change. So adding all that, this is how we were able to execute from concept to reality. As part of my homage to Cambridge and Boston, we designated all of the public pedestrian walkways in red pavers. In a way, it's a visual cue also for our estate management team to know that all of these should be well maintained, should be cleaned, and should always be repaired. Again, concept, and this is how we executed. So let's talk about Parqal. By the way, if you guys see a QR code, since I don't have a lot of time to explain everything, feel free to scan it. So there's an app that links to all of the information about this project. So in 2018, we went public. We were building this highly dense, massive offices and condos. You'll notice that all of them are roughly 15, 17 meters, 17 stories high. That's because we were close to the airport and there was a height limit. So we wanted a project that would link our public space thesis, at the same time provide amenities to the office and residential locators, and at the same time give all of these uses which we were not able to do in our office and condos. And what was that? I always think about visiting small New England towns and looking at these Main Street concepts. Every country has them. Burke Street in Melbourne, Las Ramblas in Spain, Stroget in Copenhagen. And we wanted to do something of that international context, but put it in local application. So Parqal, it's basically a mix of two words, park and calle, which is the Tagalog word or the Philippine word for street. It's basically 9 buildings, 1.6 million square feet of construction floor area, 900,000 square feet of leasable area in 12 acres of land. And about 45% of that is dedicated to parks and plazas. In terms of the tenants that we've got so far, everything is there, from embassies, a lot of, actually the US Embassy and the Japan Embassy is there, a lot of shipping companies, logistics companies, and obviously a lot of retail. We've gotten a lot of wellness uses from sports facilities. And I think the major differentiator is that there's a lot of outdoor amenities that we can provide that's not yet there. In terms of the design, again, we wanted to try and find a local context. So we focused on a traditional Filipino house, but we deconstructed the major components of that in terms of the steel, concrete, and wood to create a unique concept. But at the same time, we wanted to change the massing in terms of having a more unique concept. We also put in more plazas. Again, that's something that's unique in Metro Manila. And this is what it looks like from concept to reality. In the Philippines, there's 2 types of weather. It's hot and wet. So we wanted to be able to promote walkability by adding this unique canopy on top of the linear greenway. So we found this material. It's ETFE. It's ethylene tetrafluoroethylene. It's actually the same material that they use in the shed in the Hudson Yards. And we were able to create this one of the largest canopied walkways in Metro Manila. It also adds unique architecture features, so we're able to put lighting in it and able to do light shows for special occasions. And at the same time, when you're under it, it actually cuts the solar heat radiation by about 80%. And it allows plants to grow on it as well. We were able also to get the highest rating for the sustainability from the Philippine Green Building Council. At the same time, it's well certified. And again, we added a lot of amenities to it. So right now, about 40% of it is dedicated towards sports amenities. So there are gyms, there's a jiu-jitsu club, there's Pilates, yoga, all of these things which I think a lot of people were looking for right after the pandemic. Unique story. So one of the points we needed to get was to add public art. So we found this public art mural in the Noma district in New York. And I visited one of our batchmates, Mike Kazmierski, and it turns out he was the one who actually did this project. So that was the inspiration for one of our public murals. It's won a ton of awards from local to international. But that being said, I think one of the most gratifying or fulfilling moments to see how the space is actually being used. I always get asked like where we find the events that take place in this, from book fairs, coffee fairs, a lot of running clubs, car meets. But it's not us actually. It's people who come to the space and they propose these kinds of activities, and we just make sure that they were able to accommodate them. And that's it. Thank you.